The fourth, we believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Colleagues may think it's okay that the Russians offered dirt on a Democratic candidate for president as part of what was described as the Russian government's effort to help the Trump campaign. You might think that's okay. My colleagues might think it's okay that when that was offered to the son of the president, who had a pivotal role in the campaign, that the president's son did not call the FBI. He did not adamantly refuse that foreign help. No, instead, that son said that he would love the help of the Russians. You might think it's okay that he took that meeting. You might think it's okay that Paul Manafort, the campaign chair, someone with great experience in running campaigns, also took that meeting. You might think it's okay that the president's son-in-law also took that meeting. You might think it's okay that they concealed it from the public. You might think it's okay that their only disappointment after that meeting was that the dirt they received on Hillary Clinton wasn't better. You might think that's okay. You might think it's okay that when it was discovered a year later that they lied about that meeting and said it was about adoptions. You might think it's okay that the president is reported to have helped dictate that lie. You might think that's okay. I don't. You might think it's okay that the campaign chairman of a presidential campaign would offer information about that campaign to a Russian oligarch in exchange for money or debt forgiveness. You might think that's okay. I don't. You might think it's okay that that campaign chairman offered polling data, campaign polling data to someone linked to Russian intelligence. I don't think that's okay. You might think it's okay that the president himself called on Russia to hack his opponent's emails if they were listening. You might think it's okay that later that day, in fact, the Russians attempted to hack a server affiliated with that campaign. I don't think that's okay.
Not only is it not okay, it's unethical. Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Sorry we were missing in action for a couple of days. As you can see, we are redoing. We're redoing. See, the curtains are gone. So's the window. It's a little claustrophobic in here. There's no window by me anymore. We drywalled it. We drywalled it up. So we're in the process of, improving the quality of this broadcast visually, not any other way, because I think it's perfect the way it is. But yes, visually. So that's why we were off for 3 days. We're obviously using a new system now. So please do, give us a little bit of room to figure out every damn thing. I don't think we're on Periscope right now. Is that right? Or Facebook. That's working. All right, then. Yay for new equipment. Yay. Oh, it's not working. All right. Well, that's not your problem. It's ours. But I have to tell you that where we left off was just like so amazing, because when we left off, we didn't get not just what we wanted out of the Mueller report. We didn't get the Mueller report. That's where we left off. And then subsequently, we found out that not only does Trump mock the disabled, but he actually hates them. And this is why his budget, and I kept on going over what I kept calling the killer budget, meaning it would kill you. His budget, which is just a document. All right. So just so you can understand this, the president's budget isn't something that actually has a prayer of passing either the House or the Senate or any other thing. The president's budget is simply something that a president submits to the House and to the Senate to signal to them what his priorities are. And his priorities are apparently killing off lots of Americans, like people who need health coverage, like people who are disabled, like people who have infants and need WIC assistance, which is Women and Infant Children Assistance, for 6 million pregnant women and 6 million children, which is why I constantly tell you they love the fetus. They just love the fetus. They love when the fetus is literally eating off of me. You know, when the fetus can actually suck stuff up from me directly through, the tube. The cord. The umbilical. They love that. But once the child is, out on its own, they hate that thing. They just hate it so much. Because they don't want to feed it and they don't want to get it any health care coverage. They would rather tell you that Democrats are the ones that want to kill children, right? That we're the ones in the operating room that take a look at the little baby and decide, I changed my mind. Kill it on the altar of Satan. And yet they don't want to feed it and they don't want to resuscitate it. They don't want any health insurance available for that. Then we found out that not only is that in his budget, but that Betsy DeVos over at the Department of Education was also looking to cut $17 million out of the Special Olympiad for children with disabilities that we as a nation decided to support. She also wants to cut the entire education budget almost, to nothing, and give parents vouchers instead of public schools that work, which has always been the envy of the entire universe, that we educated our children in a free public education setting, that they copied it. Now she wants to zero it out. I mean, this is just so unbelievable. And specifically, children with disabilities ought to be singled. So it's not just that he mocks disabled reporters. Oh, no, he really hates disabled people. And they're not a priority in his budget. Then we found out he wants to destroy the ACA by going to court and telling the court, please don't uphold anything. That is the ACA. Before that, they were only after destroying the consumer protections, which were pre-existing conditions. And now they say we're going to get bigger, badder, fiercer health care. But they don't have a plan, and we should just trust him. This is just unbelievable. And then, because we didn't get the Mueller report, and we only got Barr's summary of the Mueller report, what is that? 30 seconds. It's 14 after. 1450. So play something. So I know. I said, just play me out and I'll follow you. You're not gonna do a cold break, are you? No. So how long is this? This is 1 minute. All right, so if you wanted 30 seconds, then you needed to start it. Right? What? So talk to me. Just talk to me.
I just didn't want you to watch the video.
Oh. Yeah, that's what I was going to do, actually. Did you see the reflex to play the video of Betsy DeVos? Yeah, so now we've changed the clock, too, and there's a reason for that also. So we have to learn that also. We have to learn a new clock. And so you'll just bear with us, won't you? Now, I will tell you... Wow. I don't know what happened there. Oh, see, now this shot, we didn't plan for this shot. Look how sparse it is up at the top there. And you can see the light. Oh, yeah, we have work to do. We have work to do, everybody.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Do you personally approve this? I think a yes or no will do. The $18 million cut of the funding for Special Olympics?
No, I didn't personally get involved in that.
Well, I want to tell you, whoever came up with that idea at OMB gets a Special Olympic gold medal for insensitivity. To think that we can't spend $18 million to support this dramatically successful venture, which incidentally started in Chicago, Illinois, and now reaches countries all across the world, millions of young people with disabilities. Let me tell you an area where I think you can save some money for Special Olympics and other worthy causes. We know that 9% of post-secondary students go to for-profit colleges and universities. Do you know what percentage of the student loan defaults, total student loan defaults in the United States, involves students from for-profit colleges and universities?
Senator, let me just comment on Special Olympics. And I love Special Olympics myself. I have given a portion of my salary to Special Olympics. I hope all of this debate encourages lots of private contributions to Special Olympics. So let's not use disabled children in a twisted way for your political narrative. That is just disgusting and it's shameful.
Well, Madam Secretary, let me tell you what, eliminating $18 million out of an $70 or $80 billion budget, I think is shameful too. I'm not twisting it. I asked you to answer yes or no. And you said that you did not personally approve this.
It's not a yes or no answer.
Well, it certainly is as far as I'm concerned. Someone has to accept responsibility for a bad decision.
Oh, my God. So there's Betsy DeVos being upset that her own budget that she's advocating for makes her look like a monster. What kind of new hell, fresh hell is this? What kind of sick mind is this now? That she comes and defends a budget that the president put forward. I told you, we went through that budget. That budget cuts almost $1 trillion out of Medicare. It cuts money out, it cuts almost a billion, well, more than, it cuts almost $1 trillion out of Social Security disability. Now she's cutting money for the disabled to compete in the Special Olympics and cutting the education budget. I mean, it is just so unbelievable. And she has the nerve to sit there and go, don't you dare use disabled children, because your own budget actually trashes disabled children. For me, everything, we're through the looking glass. Really, whatever they say is the opposite of what is. Whatever they do is the opposite of what is. And that's why Bill Barr's report is not being taken by anybody as a serious anything. It's just a 4-page summary of what we now know is a 300-page report minus all of the evidence. And all of the 6E testimony, okay, the grand jury testimony, which, by the way, when the Starr report was published, the grand jury testimony was also in that report. So now they're feeding us like all of this tripe and all of these ridiculous ideas about what we can and aren't entitled to see, and the budget and what it cuts, and don't make me into some monster, even though my budget is monstrous, and it literally hobbles people's ability to go to a public school, and it hobbles people's ability to get the Social Security disability checks, and the budget takes money out of Medicare, and the budget takes money out of Medicaid, and the budget it's so unbelievable. Their priorities are absolutely ass backwards. And now, today, or over the weekend, the president starts to float this idea that he's going to close the border. He's going to stop all commerce from from going over the Texas and California and Arizona borders, right, between us and Mexico. What is wrong with this man? Can he not do simple math? I don't even understand. You're talking about $611 billion worth of trade this man is willing to end, which would have an immediate effect on our economy. Immediately, you would see prices go through the ceiling, prices of everything. Cars would go through the ceiling because, car parts are made here for cars that are put together in Mexico and then shipped back here. Okay? There's not a car that's made in Mexico or any other place that doesn't have American car parts in it. Okay? And so for the president to say that we're going to shut down the border means people who actually make car parts and export them to Mexico so that the Mexican assembly lines can put them into the cars that then come back to the United. Oh my God, there'd be scarcity. There would be immediate layoffs at car park. And then that's not even touching agriculture or, the chain of food. Okay. The way that food is sent from Mexico, like the Hass avocados. Okay. Those are Mexican avocados, right? And so the way that they're shipped to us is on a very specific schedule. They are picked at a certain time. They are packaged for export at a certain time. They are loaded on trucks, and then they are shipped over the border to us to get to the store when they're ripe for sale. Now, if you just shut down the border, or if you change the schedule, it would change the quality of the food. It would change everything about the ripeness of tomatoes and the ripeness of avocados and all the other things. I mean, this is insane. He has no clue what he's doing. And yet over the weekend, he stood there and he said that he was thinking about shutting down the entire freaking border. And I have absolutely no idea, what is the plan? But before he said that, this was a little comment that he made on Fox News. And it was mind-blowing, okay?
We're capturing these people. We're getting them. But, we don't do like other countries. Other countries stand there with machine guns ready to fire. We can't do that, and I wouldn't want to do that, okay? It's a very effective way of doing it, and I wouldn't want to do it. We can't do it.
What? The President of the United States actually said he doesn't really want to do this, but he's thought about it. And a lot of other countries would do it. And, it's not that he wants to do it. It's just that he's thinking about other countries and how they do. That we should stand on the border with machine guns and kill the immigrants. Kill them for violating a civil statute. If they are violating anything at all. Because you know that if you come through a legal port of entry and claim asylum, our law says you're cool.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
You see what's happening to women. You see what's happening to children. It's a horrible situation, and Mexico could stop it right at their southern border. They have a southern border, and they have a border that could be very well structured. It's very easy for them to stop people from coming up, and they don't choose to do it. Well, we're not going to give them hundreds of billions of dollars and tell them that they're not going to use their strong immigration laws to help the United States. So there's a very good likelihood that I'll be closing the border next week, and that'll be just fine with me.
That is a crisis. Why are we talking about closing the border? Because not for spite and not to try and undo what's happening, but to simply say, look, we need the people from the ports of entry to go out and patrol in the desert where we don't have any wall. We hate to say we told you so, but we told you so.
Isn't this also self-defeating?
Yes.
Taking away aid from those countries ultimately will make the migration crisis worse.
Look, there's a lot of good ways to help solve this problem. Congress could do it, but they're not going to. Mexico could help us do it. They need to do a little bit more. Honduras could do more. Nicaragua could do more. El Salvador could do more. And if we're going to give these countries hundreds of millions of dollars, we would like them to do more. That, Jake, I would respectfully submit to you, is not an unreasonable position.
We have never seen a surge like this. It's coming from the Northern Triangle companies. How can people deny what they see, which is these caravans day by day, the people coming from the Northern Triangle countries and trying to come through this country? And there are very deplorable conditions that many of them are facing.
Yeah, but you're going to make the conditions worse.
The conditions are already awful. The conditions are already awful.
When I went down to the border, we have a crisis.
Skeletor.
We need more barriers, so we have operational control, we need more people, and we need more technology. I'm very disappointed that I walked into this job, 3 months ago with the government shut down, and the Democrats don't want to give any money for border security. That's wrong.
That's a lie. We have appropriated, Democrats have billions of dollars for border security. What we don't want to do is build a stupid wall or a fence or whatever the hell he's talking about, okay? And what they're talking about is closing the legal ports of entry. What they're talking about is ending all commerce to and fro. What they're talking about is no foreign aid to Honduras and El Salvador and Nicaragua, because the president really hates these people who are fleeing violent communities that are full of weapons that we ship there. You know, it's just so unbelievable. It is the sickest thing. So here's what he's threatening to do. He's threatening to stop $611 billion worth of commerce. That's what he's threatening to do. And honestly, everybody went and tried to talk to Republicans, and they tried to talk to the military, and they tried to talk to, the troops. You know, we've got 5,300 troops down there, and nobody knows what the president is talking about. Not one person heard about an order implementing the closing of the border. The Pentagon said that they had no idea what the president was talking about, that there's 5,300 troops in the border region, and nobody has given them any instructions or told them anything about closing a border or asking them to redeploy to this place or that. Laredo, there's a border town. Business leaders and elected officials, they are scrambling. They had these frantic conference calls over the weekend trying to figure out what is going on and what is this going to do to, trade? What is this going to do to the car industry? What is this going to do to the agriculture industry, produce industry? What is this going to do to remittances, that go back from people who work here and send money home? I mean, nobody knows what he's talking about. But here are the numbers, okay? Just so you know. We give like $118 million to like El Salvador. We give like $158 million to Guatemala and Honduras. Small amounts, millions of dollars, right? With Honduras alone, believe it or not, there's $11.4 billion worth of trade that goes on. The benefit to the United States is $5 billion. So this president is going to pull a couple of, like $100 million and risk $5 billion worth of money that the United States sees in its GDP. This makes no sense, and only this president could do this. Only he could pivot from his glorious Grand Rapids. Did you see that Grand Rapids thing? Did you see that? When he went to Grand Rapids and listen, this is a drug. I mean, there's something this president is on that's very speedy, that's very tweaky, that's very, just crazy, that's just making him sweat and making him go into mania and just say this whole thing with you're the elite. He's talking to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, Grand Rapids, no offense, it's 87% white, which is why he goes there. But the average income there is around $45,000 a year, and the median income in the United States of America is around $55,000. So the people in Grand Rapids are not doing well. And he goes there and tells them that they are the elite because you picked him. And he's got the most beautiful wife, and he has the most beautiful houses, and he has the most beautiful apartment. What kind of sick, wicked, bizarro demagoguery? What was that speech? What was that freaking about? I mean, I could not figure out what he was doing, but he was there taking some victory lap because Bill Barr decided to insert himself in a political manner into a Mueller report that obviously never wanted to be political. That's why we had an independent counsel to keep it out of politics. But Bill Barr just couldn't help himself because he promised Donald Trump that he could do what no other AG before him had done for Donald Trump, what Jeff Sessions wouldn't do, what Whitaker wouldn't do. He would end the Mueller investigation and he would put a bow on it and say there's no there there. And that's what his audition letter told Donald Trump he could do for him. And that's exactly what he did for him. Now that's sick enough. But that people are now bullying journalists and telling journalists and fact checkers and people like me that we didn't see what we saw, we didn't hear what we heard, we didn't hear him ask Russia for help, we didn't read Donald Jr.'s emails, that the Russian government wanted to help, and that if it's what you say it is, I love it. We didn't hear, we didn't read, we didn't see, we didn't nothing. Guys like Glenn Greenwald who were accepting the leaks from Guccifer 2.0. Glenn Greenwald was publishing Russian intelligence operator Guccifer 2.0, who we know from Mueller's indictment of Russian intelligence agents, from an indictment, we know that Guccifer was a Russian intelligence asset, right? And Glenn Greenwald is out there, and so is Matt Taibbi, which really makes me scratch my head in other various body parts because he's a beautiful writer. Taibbi's a great writer. He wrote for Rolling Stone. I loved the way he wrote. They're just freaked out. Now, Greenwald, of all people, he's publishing what Russian intelligence is giving him. Snowden, his best buddy, is living in Russia thanks to the Russian government offering him protection. The whole thing is so bizarre. Stop bullying us.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Mr. Mueller decides not to make a judgment on that particular issue. Does that alone surprise you?
It does. The purpose of a special counsel is to make sure that the politicals, in this case the Attorney General, doesn't make the ultimate call on whether the subject of the investigation, the President of the United States, should be held criminally liable for activities that were under investigation. And so the idea that a special counsel wouldn't reach the question and hand it to the political leadership doesn't make sense. I'm not prejudging it. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense on its face.
Doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Comey, who was himself a central witness in the obstruction case, says he doesn't understand why the president wasn't subpoenaed to answer questions about obstruction.
Do you ask yourself why Mueller did not subpoena President Trump to try to get to the heart of this intent question on obstruction?
Yes, I do. And I don't know the answer to that. I have the same question about how the Attorney General could resolve the question, which he says in his letter turns upon the president's intent without the president having been asked what his intent is.
You know, this whole thing reeks to high heaven, and we don't know the answers to those questions. All we know is that Bill Barr is not the person we wanted to hear from. You know, we saw what we saw. We fact-checked what we fact-checked. We showed you emails that obviously Donald Trump Jr. tweeted himself. Roger Stone goes on trial November 5th in Washington, D.C. We have people who were receiving, stolen, hacked materials from a Russian intelligence agent, an operative named Guccifer 2.0, and they're publishing that. Criticizing our reporting. I mean, it's so bizarre. The whole scenario is really, really strange. And leave it to Trump to just, face plant his own victory lap. He goes to Grand Rapids and he starts telling the people of Grand Rapids, Michigan, he's bullying all the journalists. He's calling us all fake. He's calling us all liars. The cowardly media is scared to death. Okay, scared to death. And so they're putting out headlines going, nothing here, nothing to see here, move along. Seriously, there's nothing to see. We didn't see what we saw. We didn't read what we didn't see these indictments. We don't know what we know. Honestly, what am I supposed to just, it's like Total Recall. I'm supposed to just wash my mind. Just wash my mind and think I'm on Mars all of a sudden. It's so strange. This is such bizarro world stuff. And the crazy part is, this is exactly what the Russians had intended all along. Now, did Trump collude with the government of Russia? Obviously, he asked them for help. We heard that. We saw that. Now he's lying about it, saying, it happened at a rally and it was a joke. It didn't happen at a rally. It happened at a press conference, okay? And he was standing on a stage with a bunch of reporters, and he said, Russia, if you're listening, okay? That was not the heat of the Adderall. It was not the straight-to-the-vein shot of whatever it is he's snorting, smoking, drinking, doing. that made him say this as, hyperbolic and, no, it's psychosis. And Alex Jones apparently is suffering from psychosis that now makes him believe in all conspiracy theories. I don't know how many people saw that the law firm that deposed Alex Jones on behalf of the Sandy Hook families who are suing Alex Jones for defamation by saying that these kids didn't die and that they were crisis actors and all. He finally got deposed, and the lawyer who deposed him on behalf of the families made the deposition public. And there's Alex Jones sitting in a deposition saying, I suffer from psychosis because, the whole media is covering up something and I didn't know what it was. And they made me all believe that everything was a conspiracy theory. I mean, this is the sickest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. And this guy had a huge platform.
A form of psychosis. That's what InfoWars founder Alex Jones is saying caused him to believe events like the Sandy Hook massacre were staged. During a recent sworn deposition as part of a defamation lawsuit against him, Jones said that the trauma of the media and corporations lying made him believe that everything was a conspiracy.
And I myself, almost had like a form of psychosis back in the past where I basically thought everything was staged, even though I've now learned a lot of times things aren't staged. I think as a pundit and someone giving opinion, that my opinions have been wrong, but they were never wrong consciously to hurt people.
You remember in the past, Jones's divorce lawyer tried to sell the fact that his on-air persona was just an act. But according to Jones, he was really trying to get at the truth.
Well, what I'm getting at is this stuff we're looking at today. Kids going in circles, schools closed, emails, EMTs not in the building, porta potties. These aren't comedy skits. This is journalism.
Yes. Well, this is punditry because I wear a journalist hat, punditry hat, satire hat. Just reading news. Just being a news reader. I do that as well. So I do a lot of things. Sure. But when I was covering Sandy Hook, I was genuinely trying to get at the truth of it.
Oh my God. He was genuinely trying to get the truth of it. And he believed because he was having because he is a psychotic, he was believing that they were child actors. Do you know how far you have to go in your head to think that? When you hear that 26 people have been shot and 20 of them were under the age of 6, and the president of the United States is on television announcing that 6-year-olds are dead. 20, like almost a dozen 6-year-olds have been gunned down in their school, and wiping tears from his eyes. Do you know how twisted you would have to be? And the only defense for defamation is the truth, and the truth is not on his side. So now he's sitting there saying, I was sick. The whole time I held a microphone, I was sick. I'm a sick man.
You will admit, you've done mocking imitations of Sandy Hook parents crying, correct?
No.
No.
I want to play you a video clip, too, from September 24th, 2014 and November 11th, 2016. Will you play the video clip called Crying?
And then you've got parents laughing, going, and then they walk over to the camera and go, and not just one, but a bunch of parents doing this. Then we see footage of one of the reported fathers of the victims, Robbie Parker, doing classic acting training where he's laughing and joking, and they say, hey, we're live. And he goes, oh. And maybe that's real. I'm sure it is.
You realize now you were mocking the difficult emotional reactions of people who provably lost their children.
No, I was not mocking. I was showing what people were questioning. It was not to mock the parents. It was showing why people were questioning. It's you that is projecting mocking onto it. I was showing what he did.
Starting into 2015,
they debunk everything. I just want you to know.
A Sandy Hook parent named Leonard Posner was behind a group called Honor Network. Correct? That was fighting online abuse of Sandy Hook victims?
I did, I think.
And when you learned that, and when Honor complained to YouTube in 2015, you told your viewers that Honor was run by Mr. Posner You showed addresses being used by Mr. Posner, and you said he needed to be investigated in Florida. Didn't you say that?
Objection is to form. No.
Okay, let's play a clip here. I'm going to show you something that you and Mr. Dew were talking about on February 12th, 2015.
Look at Mr. Dew. Wait till you see him. I don't know if you've ever seen him.
He's been getting all kinds of grief from Mr. Posner. Anything that comes out, social media shut down due to Sandy Hook false copyrights. What's interesting is they list the address for the Honor Network in Boca Raton, Florida. You look up the address on that, which says...
Oh, my
God. You know, if they had this organization, they would have some sort of headquarters where they would be setting up a memorial.
Well, we'll just start investigating that. And I guess I'm going to have to probably go on up to Newtown. I'm going to have to probably go investigate Florida as well.
Oh, my God.
If a person were to stake out those addresses, they could wait for Mr. Posner to come pick up his mail, couldn't they?
Objection is to form.
True?
I mean, the guy's running an anti-free speech foundation.
Oh, my
Let me
God.
make sure I have this really clear. You don't believe the official story is Sandy Hook. You think there was cover-up? You think there was manipulation? You think that there is some sinister thing going on?
I still think children died. I believe mass shootings happened. They just had one in Brazil, a tragedy. And I believe it's a crisis. And I go back to the point of all gun owners being collectively blamed. Then it's traumatic, and so people go and they find anomalies, and then I've kind of retrospectively gone back and seen how I did believe that stuff.
This is very sick. This is very twisted. This man is in deep, deep doo-doo, and the whole country is in deep doo-doo. The whole country, our country, has been propagandized on every issue you could possibly imagine, including dead children, including gun violence in their schools, including, immigration, including a president who obviously sought help from a foreign government because he couldn't win on his own and asked Russia for help. You saw that. His son agreed to take a meeting with Russians and said, if it's what you say it is, this dirt that you're promising, I love it. We're supposed to forget all this.
The head of the House Oversight Committee says that he is planning to subpoena a former top White House official over security clearances. This all started from when a White House staffer, Tricia Newbold, she came forward and has told House investigators, top White House officials overruled clearance concerns on not one or two people, but about 25 people to get security clearances. Oh! She claims the concerns that popped up during background checks ranged from fears of foreign influence to possible drug use.
Oh, my
God. So what
God.
does this all mean now? Let's get right over to the Capitol. CNN Manu Raju is there. Manu, Chairman Elijah Cummings says that subpoenas are coming. What are you hearing?
Yeah, House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings has made this a priority for his committee to investigate the security clearance process at the White House, raising concerns about officials such as Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump, who apparently had got their security clearance approved, overruled, and pushed through by the president despite concerns within the White House. Now, this whistleblower, who Elijah Cummings calls a whistleblower, Tricia Newbold, does not identify anyone by name according to the memo that Cummings put out today, but says there were 25 individuals that she listed since 2018 who were allowed to get their security clearances despite initial denials by career officials who had raised significant concerns about their backgrounds. Now, according to this memo, it says this: according to Ms. Newbold, these individuals had a wide range of serious disqualifying issues involving foreign influence, conflicts of interest, concerning personnel conduct, financial problems, drug use, and criminal conduct. She goes on to tell House Democratic staff and Republican staff on this committee about a range of concerns about the way the security clearance process works at the Trump White House. She said there's not adequate staff to review this. She said there's not enough security to look over the personal security files. She also says there's, quote, an unusually high number of individuals who get interim security clearances who she said should not. She said these people who got interim security clearances were later deemed unsuitable unsuitable for access to classified information. On top of this, Kate, she claims that the White House retaliated against her. White House officials have. And she said that she was forced to come forward before this committee. Now, Elijah Cummings says that he does plan to subpoena an individual, Carl Klein, who served as the personal security director at the White House. He plans to do that this week. Now, we have not heard back from Klein or the White House or any of those individuals, but we did hear just back from the top Republican on this committee, Jim Jordan, who calls this a reckless use of whistleblower information, says that Cummings is mischaracterizing Ms. Newbold's what she told the committee, and says these 25 individuals, some of them were, as he says, one was a GSA official who was on the custodial staff. So debate going forward, but clearly the Democrats in the majority, they plan to pursue this in the days ahead.
So here's what that whole report says, that the clearances of at least 24 people, including 2 current senior White House officials, guess who that could be, did not pass the background check procedures. They were denied security clearances based on conflicts of interest, based on foreign influence, concerning political, personal conduct, financial problems, drug use, and criminal conduct. And they were denied White House security clearances. Now, of course, as you know, the president is free to distribute these security clearances to even his unqualified son-in-law and his beautiful, crazy daughter. Right? And that's what the president did. And so this particular whistleblower named Tricia Newbold said that she was being retaliated against by Trump and the Trump administration, but she had worked there. Check this out. She's worked there. She's a White House employee for 18 years. For 18 long-ass years. And she has been a part of the vetting personnel that look at who and what the applications that these people put in to get their security clearances. It's called adjudications manager. That's her position for the last 18 years. She was the adjudications manager in the personnel security office. I think that's very self-explanatory. An adjudication is a judgment. So she was in charge of making the judgments on personnel in the White House who applied for security clearances. Hence her title, adjudications manager in the personnel security office. She said that she could not sit back, relax, and enjoy the sleaze show that is the Trump administration, that she felt that she had to do the service for her country. She said, I would, this is what her actual quote is, quote, I would not be doing a service to myself, my country, or my children if I sat back knowing that the issues that we have could impact national security. I can hear you talking. Could impact national security. If you want to just close the door, that'd be great. So she wrote this memo, and she wrote a memo saying that there are at least 24 people who have gotten security clearances, top secret security clearances, the whole show, the whole thing, the whole enchilada of security clearances that have criminal conduct in their background, that have drug use in their background, that have financial obligations that they're ripe for cultivation by foreign governments, that they're under the influence of foreign agents, that they have conflicts of interest, that their personal conduct is questionable at best, and that they shouldn't have security clearances. So this week, Elijah Cummings is going to issue subpoenas for the documents. And of course, the people who hate this country but love Donald Trump more, like the Jim Jordans of the world, oh, it's all political. It's all political. What in the world would this woman who worked in the White House, who was part of the team that adjudicated the applications for national security clearances, have to gain by coming forward and asking for whistleblower protection because she's been retaliated against by the Trump administration for exposing the corrupt nature in which people who don't deserve and should never have security clearances, according to law enforcement, according to the intelligence community, according to the White House chief of staff. I mean, remember, Kelly, Don McGahn, they're all writing contemporaneous notes as this process is being ignored, right? And they're saying, oh my God, a security clearance was just given to so-and-so, and there's no names here, but a security clearance was given to so-and-so over the objections of law enforcement. I think I need to take notes here. Same thing for, Don McGahn, White House counsel, who is there to protect the office of the presidency, not the president. And Don McGahn is taking contemporaneous notes, saying the same thing. Oh my God, so-and-so, look at this report. So-and-so has had drug use. So-and-so has had personal conduct that is questionable. So-and-so is under the influence of a foreign government. So-and-so is ripe for cultivation by, adverse actors. So-and-so, And they're taking notes, right? And so now we have to go around. Elijah Cummings is going to issue a subpoena this week demanding that the man who served as the director at the security personnel office come and testify to the oversight committee and tell them what the hell was, why is this, happening? Who did what? What information was deemed so damaging that these 25 people were rejected, that these 25 people were given security clearances over the objections of the intelligence community, over the objections of the White House counsel, over the objections of the White House chief of staff, over the objections of law enforcement, over the objections of the FBI. Why was the White House overturning their decisions to give 25 individuals security clearances that they didn't qualify for, and an unusually high number of interim clearances because these people couldn't get clearances, and so they were just extending security and reading them in on the presidential daily brief and all of the most consequential pieces of national security this country possesses. Why were these people allowed to have that?
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Elijah Cummings, the House Oversight Committee chairman, sent a letter to the White House detailing what he says is a whistleblower who has come forward to raise significant concerns about the security clearance process in the White House. Now, the whistleblower who is named in here, her name is Tricia Newbold. She's the adjudications manager in the Personal Security Office, and she met with Republican and Democratic staff of this committee, raising a number of concerns. In particular, she informed the committee that in the Trump White House, she and other career officials adjudicated denials of dozens of applications for security clearances, and those were later overturned by White House officials. She specifically says that she started to keep a list in 2018 of the number of denials that were overturned. She said there were 25 denials of individuals who were later overturned, despite concerns that these people potentially should not get the security clearances. She said there are two current senior White House officials whose security clearances were instated despite the concerns and the denials by the career officials. Now, what she says is that the individuals whose applications were denied had a wide range of serious disqualifying issues involving foreign influence, conflicts of interest concerning personal conduct, financial problems, drug use, and criminal conduct.
Oh! I mean, think about that. Could it be that the two senior White House officials who got security clearances that were somehow there was information about them that said that they had, very, substandard personal conduct, that they were under the influence of drugs, that they were under the influence of foreign governments, that they had, like all across the board, disqualifying factors, and yet these two senior White House officials who are still serving were given the most sensitive security information that this government possesses. Now, let's see, the pressure of two senior White House officials currently serving. What could their names be? Ivanka? just the pressure of a name, and you just want to spew out Jared. This is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. Now, this woman, Tricia Newbold, who has written a letter to the Oversight Committee because she felt that after 18 years of working in this office in the White House, she had never seen anything like this, ever. Never seen anything like this. That she had to speak out because she feared for the security of this country. She feared for the security of her own children. She fears for the security of her own integrity. Had to write a letter to the Oversight Committee to let them know that this is going on. And she said, that concerns were raised about senior White House official one's individual security clearance was denied after the background check revealed significant disqualifying factors, including foreign influence, outside activities, and personal conduct. Senior White House official 2 was also denied a security clearance over potential foreign influence. And senior White House official 3, who worked at the National Security Council, was told to change the recommendation against providing a security clearance. And she wrote in this letter, "That is something I would not do." She said, in quotes, "I said I would absolutely not." And yet these security clearances were given out. Now, 25 people, I'm guessing some of them were Michael Flynn, and the 2 current serving members are Jared and Ivanka. And isn't it interesting that people showed up dead after Jared went to Saudi Arabia, right? Just, Saudi Arabia. And all of a sudden, you got a Washington Post columnist, Jamal Khashoggi, dismembered, just cut into pieces with a bone saw at the Saudi embassy in Istanbul. Isn't that something? And the people who are in charge of giving out security clearances are saying, you really need to sit up and pay attention, Congress. You need to do some oversight here because there was nobody in Congress that would do any oversight over the Trump administration. But now the Democrats are in charge, and you need to do the oversight because people are given America's most sensitive secrets, and then they turn around and give them to foreign adversaries who only wish to do us harm. Now, if that's not disgusting, I don't know what is. And how could these people who are, supposedly journalists who care about transparency, that's the most amazing thing of all, is that these people who are criticizing those of us who actually are telling you these things that are being reported to the Oversight Committee, that are being reported to the Judiciary Committee, that, the former FBI director is sitting there saying that he can't even fathom that Mueller would want Bill Barr to summarize his 22-month investigation and put it square in the middle of a political situation. No, he wanted the people of the United States and he wanted Congress to go over his report and figure out whether this president was compromised in any way by foreign governments. And now on top of that, you have this new whistleblower who's coming out going, oh, yes, people in the Trump administration are compromised. They are compromised by foreign influence. They are compromised by their financial ties. They are compromised by debt. They are compromised by their personal behavior. They are compromised by drug use. And they're being given security clearances, and this is dangerous. And you got these people sitting there going, oh, it's all a hoax, it's all a fraud, they just don't believe a word you say. Trump's sitting there on Hannity, I was spied on, that's what happened.
Well, when I said there could be somebody spying on my campaign, a lot of things happened. It was like it went wild out there. They couldn't believe that I could say such a thing. And as it turned out, that was small potatoes compared to what went on. When you look at what happened and when it happened and the money that was spent, the millions and millions on the phony dossier, and then they used the dossier to start things, and there was no truth whatsoever. It was a fraud.
Okay, the dossier did not start anything. That's just not true. What started everything was George Papadopoulos. That's what started everything. George Papadopoulos sitting there with a Russian operative who told him that the Russian government had dirt on Hillary Clinton, lots of it. And he got drunk and told an Australian intelligence officer that is what happened, that he was sitting there with a professor from Malta, Professor Misfud. And Professor Misfud was telling him, hey, the Russian government's got all this dirt on Hillary Clinton. They want to give it to the Trump campaign. So Papadopoulos tells this to an Australian diplomat. The Australian diplomat tells his government, you won't believe what I just heard from the foreign policy team that idiot boy Trump has put together. The guy running for president? He says that the Russians are going to help him, right? So the Australians tell the Obama administration about it. They tell the FBI about it. And the FBI says that's very interesting because we have intercepted phone calls with another guy who's on the foreign policy team, a guy named Michael Flynn. He's a general. Yeah, he's a general, and he's talking to Russians too. That's how the counterintelligence investigation was started. Had absolutely nothing to do with the dossier. Although a good chunk of the dossier has been borne out, and other parts of it we still wait to see. Now, all anybody remembers about the dossier is the PP tape. We don't know if that's true. We don't know if that's not true. But that aside, the multiple offers for help from the Russians, that's real.
Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
No, thank you, Mr. Attorney General. We do not need your interpretation. Show us the report, and we can draw our own conclusions. We don't need you interpreting for us. It was condescending, it was arrogant, and it wasn't the right thing to do. We have to see the facts. We have to see what the report is. And we do not need an attorney general whose job interview was that the president is above the law, that doesn't think a president can be indicted, to be our interpreter of something that he should just show us. You would think the Justice Department would be busy vetting the report so it could more quickly bring it to the public in public view. Instead, what do? They're going to court to overturn every single provision of the Affordable Care Act. Not a good use of their time. We'll see them in court. I think that impeachment is a very divisive issue in our country, and we shouldn't impeach a president because of a political reason. Or we should not impeach a president if the evidence is there for impeachment. But that's not where we are.
I think she's pissed. I really do. I think she's pissed. I think the Democrats have had it with this, Bill Barr's summary of what he thinks Mueller meant to have happen. The whole thing. We are in such a strange and corrupt moment in American history. And, this government of ours has been corrupt for a really, really long time. The amount of money that is involved in elections, the amount of money that's involved every single day in politics, the fundraisers from breakfast to lunch to dinner to drinks to after hours, the amount of influence that corporations and lobbyists and individuals with big checkbooks have over our government is legendary. It's not anything new, and that's why for years I kept saying, well, there's nothing new under the sun. And if you really want a clean government, and if you really wanted representation, and if you really wanted to, have your voice heard, then there were several things we had to do, and the first thing we had to do is get all the money out of politics and go to public financing. That would be number one. Number two, would be to get rid of gerrymandering completely and altogether. And number 3 would be to get rid of the Electoral College. So it's one man, one vote, and everybody that wants to be president has to campaign everywhere and convince a plurality, a majority of the American people that they are worthy of this office, okay? And those things have not happened, and that is why we are now so deep into a swamp thing culture. The whole government, our country, it's just one big sleaze show, and everybody knows it. And you know what happens when it gets this sleazy? When you have a president who is just a pathological, congenital liar, when you have a president who's threatening, listen, if he took the money away from Honduras, okay, just for instance, do you know how many Americans go to Honduras every single year? Do you have any idea what the cruise industry is, and how many Americans go to Roatan? How many Americans go to Honduras every single year for tourism? You're talking about compromising the safety of 1 million Americans because this president is having a hissy fit over brown people and thinks his base also hates brown people. You're talking about $611 billion worth of trade from Mexico. Let me show you something. Fox News thinks Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala are 3 Mexican countries. Look at the Chiron they ran. Look at the lower third that they ran.
So yesterday we talked about
Look at that.
potentially shutting down the southern border. 2 days ago. Excuse me. No, that's yeah.
Look at that. Trump cuts U.S. aid to 3 Mexican countries. 3 Mexican countries. El Salvador is not a Mexican country. It is a country in Central America. Honduras is not a Mexican country. It is a country in Central America. Same with Nicaragua, same with Costa Rica, same with Panama. They are not part of it. This is so sick and they are so stupid. And these are the people that are leading the fraud march. These are the people that are helping to corrupt our government and to put us knee deep, well, or neck deep now in a disgusting mosquito infested swamp of absolute abject corruption. You got a daughter and a son-in-law that are getting security clearances that they're not qualified for because of personal conduct, because of their own corruption, because of their own drug use. I don't even know who was the drug user that they were referring to in this whistleblower report. But this is just bizarro world. You got Paul Manafort, who's been convicted of fraud and other crimes. You got Michael Flynn, who's been convicted of lying to the FBI. You got an EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt. You got an Interior Secretary, Ryan Zinke. All been forced to resign over ethics violations. You got a labor secretary named Alex Acosta who's under fire for a plea deal, with regard to a pedophile named Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, what kind of corruption is this? Can you imagine? I mean, if Hillary Clinton were president and the labor secretary, let's say it was Robert Reich and he was involved in covering up a freaking human trafficking ring in Palm Beach. Oh my God. What's this? We're not even in the top 20 least corrupt nations on the planet anymore. We've lost our standing. And the financial crisis back in 2008, okay? This was the beginning of abject corruption. This was the beginning of what money could buy, the deregulation of a banking system, systemic corruption inside key financial institutions. That was not about a few crooked mortgage brokers offering bad loans. This was serious stuff that ratings agencies and investment banks and government-backed lenders like Freddie Mae and Fannie Mac and some economists who are now at the Fed, and we find out that they are hundreds of thousands of dollars behind in child support, and they got $75,000 worth of tax fraud. I mean, it's just so sick. Then we watched the thing with the Boeing 737 MAX, okay? And you got 2 crashes in a row, and the United States is like hesitant to ground the plane. We're actually the last country to ground this plane after 2 crashes in a row. You have Ethiopian authorities acting more responsibly than the United States of America, for God's sake. And the people in Ethiopia wouldn't even send their black boxes to the United States. They send them to France because they don't trust the United States. Why? Because our acting Secretary of Defense is a Boeing executive, which I've pointed out to you over and over again. What could go wrong? The FAA regulators are Boeing. They're Boeing people. They're Boeing personnel. There's actually a contract where Boeing gets to sign off on the safety of its own product. You got the college admissions scandal. Oh my God. We used to think, white privilege was just being a legacy. That was affirmative action for rich white kids. Well, it seems like if a parent gives the donation at the right time, the kid gets in. It also seems like the parents can buy test takers to take tests for their kids and get in. It seems like a bunch of corrupt coaches and administrators get these less than fully qualified kids into elite schools by falsifying test results, by passing them off as gifted athletes, literally photoshopping their faces onto gifted athletes' bodies. You got like a rape epidemic in the military. You got a rape epidemic in the clergy. And everything gets covered up. This is corruption. This is the swamp.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Little pencil neck Adam Schiff.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
He's got the smallest, thinnest neck I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
He is not a long ball hitter. But I saw him today. Well, we don't really know. There could still have been some Russia collusion. Sick. These are sick people.
Then they started screaming, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. I honestly, this is the president of the United States. All he is like an adolescent bully. He's a child. He's a man-child. He's a big-ass baby. And you have a president of the United States who's been giving out security clearances to his relatives and to people who obviously could not pass the background check, on top of the fact that he was on the television asking Russia for help, that his son was saying that he would accept Russian help, and that if the Russians could give him dirt on Hillary Clinton, he loved it, he wanted it. I mean, and you got people that are trying to tell us that none of these things happened, and that everything that we were told, and everything that we read, and everything that we heard, and everything that we saw, that he told Lester Holt that he fired Comey because of this Russia thing, that he asked Russia for help at a rally, which he did not do. He did that at a press conference. That his son released emails that clearly say that he would welcome Russian help. And that he wanted the dirt on Hillary Clinton. Roger Stone has to go on trial on November 5th in D.C. because he was communicating with Guccifer 2.0 on direct messages and Twitter. You got all these loose ends, and people are sitting there telling me it's a fraud and blame Rachel Maddow. Really?
The media got this story wrong.
No, we didn't.
They obsessed on this for 3 years, and all this time there was no evidence for it. It was just a conspiracy theory. Rachel Maddow, the most influential liberal TV host in the country, every single night misled millions of liberals into believing something that was totally false, and there will be no media consequences for it. And that is extremely grave and serious, no matter how much is true about how corrupt Donald Trump is in his financial dealings or any of the other stuff that people are now trying to deflect our attention onto.
What is wrong with Glenn Greenwald? I mean, I know his best friend is Snowden, and Snowden lives in Russia. I get it. He's under the protection of the Russian government. And he, Glenn Greenwald, lives in Brazil and adopts dogs and brings them to some farm that he's got, and then, puts stuff on Twitter to come and get these dogs. I don't know. But why is he living in Brazil? And from afar, you got Snowden in Russia, Greenwald in Brazil, and they're all ganging up on Rachel Maddow, who reported and read the indictments live on the TV as we were receiving them on Friday nights. And somehow the indictments weren't the indictments, and the plea for help wasn't really a plea for help, and the emails to the Sun wasn't really an email to the Sun, and all of this stuff that went on with the Russian government offering all kinds of help to the Trump campaign, whether or not they accepted it, well, I think Junior did. He's just disappointed in what he got. Although we saw everything unfold in real time, not one of them ever called the FBI. Not one of them reported this to law enforcement. Not one of them thought, oh my God, the Russians really are, hacking, and they really are getting Hillary's emails. And we know who these people are because they emailed us and they told us, hey, you could have them first. And not one of them picked up a phone out of this great love for America first and America's security and America. No, in fact, they never called the FBI. They told people who were intermediaries for the Russian government, yeah, we want this stuff. We want it bad. They did the exact opposite of what somebody who cared about this country would do.
We know that the Russians offered to help the Trump campaign. We have the emails proving that, and we know that Don Jr. was not interviewed. We know, as a matter of fact, unless the Russians fabricated the cable, in which case you would have expected denials from the Trump camp, that Jared Kushner sought to use the communications gear of the Russian diplomats, and that they put their cable on this out in a way knowing it would be intercepted. We know, and Glenn certainly wouldn't dispute, that the Russians tried to interfere in our election. Now, all of these facts are fundamental to what matters here. And the issue that matters is this began as a counterintelligence investigation, not a criminal investigation. And I don't think Bob Barr has completely, as Glenn suggested, distorted what was said here, but I think his 4-page summary doesn't give us the full picture. After all, the only place he quoted the Mueller report was that it did not exonerate Donald Trump on the issue of obstruction of justice. We need to see the report. And we can't draw the kind of conclusions that Glenn is drawing without actually seeing the document. There's a lot of gray area here, and the standard for the conduct of the president is not the standard of criminal liability. And just one other point. Let's remember that Donald Trump, who studied at the foot of Roy Cohn, as a young man beat 4 grand jury investigations. He escaped scrutiny for his role in the international drug trafficking of Joseph Wexelbaum, whom he wrote a letter saying he was a stand-up guy who shouldn't be punished, and engaged in behavior that made no sense unless the two of them were in the business together. That Trump has a long and thoroughly documented history of lying, of filing false reports, of cheating on his taxes, having been tried twice for income tax fraud and lost both of those cases. They were civil cases, but lost both. So I don't think you can draw the conclusions Glenn has drawn without seeing the Mueller report in full.
Hello? What is so difficult about that concept that we need to know if the president and his son-in-law and his daughter and his son and his first national security advisor and his campaign manager and his deputy campaign manager and his inaugural fund are compromised by foreign governments that don't really have America's best interests in mind? What is so difficult about that to accept? We saw what we saw. We read what we read. People are literally twisting themselves into pretzels to try and say, blame this person on the TV for all of the malfeasance that went on in the Trump campaign, that they never called the FBI, that they never reported the fact that they knew that Russia had dirt, that Russia had hacked, that Russia was inside the DNC, Russia was inside the RNC, Russia was inside the states' registration rolls. They knew that. The president of the United States currently, before he was president of the United States, knew that. And nobody picked up a phone. And nobody said, oh my God, this is dangerous. Something bad is going on at the hands of a foreign adversary in this election. Instead, what you had was a president who was standing up there going, the whole thing is rigged. It's all rigged, because he knew it was. But it was rigged for him. And he was putting out the narrative that it was rigged in case he lost. So he would not have to say that he lost because people didn't like him, because people found him to be a fraud and people found him to be a schemer and a liar and a douchebag. No, instead, he said the whole thing was rigged because it was. Paul in New Mexico.
Hey, Randy.
Hey.
God, we're screwed.
We're not screwed, but we're in a bad place.
But Randy, this is dragging on and on and on with essentially zero results. And the reason I called, at first I thought it was a little sarcastic, but I'm serious, Like, would Mueller himself be covered by whistleblower if he just came out? He's worked. He's an American. I believe in him. He's done all this work, and he's going to watch it just get shredded?
Well, there will be subpoenas, as you know. Bill Barr is going to be subpoenaed on Wednesday, because remember that the Judiciary Committee sent a letter to Bill Barr and said that he had until the 2nd of April, which is tomorrow, to produce the entire report. And he's not going to do that. And so the day after, Wednesday, Bill Barr will get a subpoena to appear. So that's number one. And after Bill Barr appears, he said that he would release the entire report by mid-April. If he fails to do that, then of course Mueller will be subpoenaed as well. And he will have to testify about whether or not the president was compromised.
Randy, at the top of the hour on Progressive Voices, they're saying that the report's going to go to the White House first. They can cut it and then claim executive privilege.
No, it doesn't go to the White House first. It's going to Congress first, without the president getting to see it, according to Barr, and he'll have to testify. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.